The worst nightmare of the United States is already a reality. Russia and China are joining forces to fight together for a multipolar world, much more equal and much more just, but also for their own interests. In this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what's happening right now between both countries. Why does the United States fear it and fear them so much? What consequences will this alliance have for the world and for each of the parties? And stay until the end, because there I'll explain how all of this has been possible when just 10 years ago it was only option B. I'm Liu Sivaya, geopolitical analyst and correspondent for the Random Bus. Follow me to stay up to date with the most in-depth and interesting analyses of the latest international news. Before we continue, please watch this video of Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. Exactly what the Chinese leader says to the Russian leader. Both of them, notice, are absolutely aware of the historic moment they are experiencing, that they are creating together, and I want you to keep this video in mind with every step we take throughout this report on the alliance of the future.
We have jointly witnessed the continuous consolidation and elevation of political mutual trust between China and Russia, and witnessed cooperation in various fields between the two countries.
Like sesame flowers blooming higher and higher, in the face of changes in the world and changes of the times, and changes in history, China and Russia must firmly grasp bilateral relations.
The direction of progress and the general trend of human society's development.
We should pursue comprehensive cooperation as human progress and key events demand broad responsibility.
The direction of progress and the major events in the development of human society are important. The direction of progress and the major events in the development of human society are important.
The world is becoming multipolar. We must adhere to cooperation and mutual benefit and be a leader in global governance.
The future and destiny of the world should be jointly determined by all countries. The achievements of global development should be shared by all countries. China and Russia, as major powers and emerging markets, should work together for fairer global governance and cooperate more in groups like the United Nations Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Promote multilateralism, guide global governance, and support inclusive development.
China, Russia, and the whether in early November, Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin traveled to China to meet with Xi Jinping. Between the two, that is, between Russia and China, agreements of great importance were signed. Especially noteworthy is the cooperation, even more so in economic and financial terms, and the trade between both countries in rubles and yuan, respectively. They also agreed to cooperate, of course, in other areas: economic, military, technological, including artificial intelligence and space. Yes, Russia and China will explore and likely travel to the moon together. And that's not even mentioning the huge joint cooperation project for developing the Arctic, with the tremendous amount of resources that are there. A detail worth mentioning is that the meeting in question was no exception. Vladimir Putin personally flew to China to attend the 80th anniversary celebration of the victory in World War II, a very important event both for China in general and personally for Xi Jinping. In fact, the latter was in the Russian Federation in Moscow on May 9th for the Victory Day celebration. That is, the ties between both countries have been placed in the general historical context. We could say that Russian-Chinese relations are characterized by both parties as relations of strategic cooperation and comprehensive partnership. The principles and main directions of their development are outlined in the 2001 Treaty of Good Neighborliness, Friendship, and Cooperation between the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China. To date, a total of more than 300 intergovernmental agreements and treaties have been concluded between the parties, covering almost all areas of cooperation. China is, therefore, an absolutely key partner for the Russian Federation on the world stage. And another fundamental point is whether the approach of the two states to key international problems and fundamental issues of the modern world order is close or even identical. This foundation is why Russia and China maintain such close cooperation, especially internationally. And going into a bit more detail now, in the midst of a paradigm shift at the international level, Russia and China support each other more than ever. Yes, for example, China refused to participate in the policy of isolation that the West has tried to impose internationally against the Russian Federation. In fact, it has taken some actions that have helped that country a lot. It buys energy resources from Russia, thus ensuring its economic survival. It also sells many more drone parts to Russia than, for example, to Ukraine. Another gesture. Both countries vote in a very similar way at the United Nations, but here the favor is not only towards Russia. You could say it's mutual. Another recently established mutual agreement is the visa regime, which from now on is no longer necessary. That is, a Russian could spend 30 days in China without needing a visa at all. Russian tourism to China is increasing, as is Chinese tourism to Russia. The incomes of both countries add up, but without a doubt, the most important field here is the military technical one. Thus, on June 19, Vladimir Putin stated that, in fact, there is already an absolutely organized and established plan in terms of this cooperation. No less important, I quote the Russian president, "We are developing both military technical cooperation and military cooperation." This is certainly extremely important to ensure stability in world affairs. We have a whole plan of cooperation in this direction. She added, "We know what our Chinese friends want." This point is especially noteworthy, since Vladimir Putin usually refers to other countries as partners. But in the case of China, he uses the word friends. We know the wishes of our Chinese friends. It's not just about buying and selling. It's about exchanging military technologies. We are ready for this, and we will work in all these areas, emphasized the president of the Russian Federation, summarizing and highlighting the most important points. The cooperation between China and Russia can be divided into 5 main groups, namely investment cooperation, trade and economic cooperation, humanitarian cooperation, energy cooperation, and military cooperation. Each is extremely painful for the United States. And this is where we come to the second point of the equation. What exactly is the United States afraid of regarding the alliance between China and Russia? A little more context here. After World War II, the United States became something like the superstate, the world's policeman, the one who gives orders and commands internationally. It had the ideal blackmail tool. Its influence became dollars. Russia and China, meanwhile, especially in their early days, had a rather calm foreign policy. They tried not to get involved in conflicts with anyone until the exact moment came when the United States, with its constant extortion, showed them that if anyone doesn't want to follow American blackmail and wants to move freely on this geopolitical board, they have to unite. They realized that sovereignty was the same as unity, which in turn meant a loss of influence, and therefore of power, and therefore of money, and therefore of vassals. From the United States side, one of the most important threats, therefore, is undoubtedly the monetary one. Now that Russia and China are cooperating more and more and using their respective currencies to carry out the relevant payments, it turns out that the dollar is simply left out. No dollar, no American influence. Therefore, that country's hegemony collapses like a house of cards. Not to mention, of course, the example this sets for the whole world. Where there is economics, there is, of course, also politics, or geopolitics, if you prefer. Be that as it may, where the United States could previously just show up and take whatever resources it needed from any country, now it has to be much more considerate. One of the most recent examples of this, without a doubt, is Venezuela. In fact, we've dedicated not just one, but two full reports to this issue. On one hand, we've talked about how the Russian Federation is confronting the United States in Venezuela, even through the presence of the... What exactly does this confrontation mean? And what could its possible scenarios be? Ultimately, where the United States previously didn't have to ask anyone for permission, now it knows for sure that geopolitics is a two-player game. What goes around comes around. Or, in other words, where the United States gets involved in Ukraine, it could end up getting hurt in Venezuela. From now on, it is becoming clearer to the United States that it's not the only country in the world that can put on the pressure. The Russian Federation is confronting the United States. Even on the side, the Federation is confronting the United States in Venezuela, including the presence of governments. As we have discussed, the Federation is confronting through other means, including the presence of governments. On the other side, as we have talked about, is the Russian Federation challenging the United States in other ways? The presence of governments that can act to defend their own interests. And there, oh my God, it turns out they discover that joining together is the same as becoming richer. And yes, I mean joining rather than being a vassal, and choosing between those who respect you and those who don't. The answer is pretty obvious. That's how the economic center of the world is gradually shifting toward Beijing. Yes, exactly. This, in fact, is one of the key reasons behind the United States' growing need to squeeze its vassals as much as possible. Sorry, I mean Western allies. Yes, in particular, we're talking about the European Union. And yes, basically because the little influence that still remains, as well as the little willingness, the United States must fully squeeze them to profit. We're unknowingly getting a picture that's far from picturesque, especially for the American side. And that's even though we haven't yet talked about one of the most important threats, the military one. Oops, bring me the tranquilizers. I'm going straight to the Founding Fathers. Okay, seriously, if the last at least 3 years have shown us anything, it's that military power is absolutely fundamental. I'll explain it to you with a simple equation. Military strength equals independence, and independence equals sovereignty, and sovereignty equals international success. To simplify it even more, it's something like guts, plus weapons, plus resources. The more, the better. The perfect winning formula. And now we move on to build this equation on the basis of the China-Russia alliance to explain why the United States is so afraid. Let's see. What could China bring to the table? Ah, I see. Economy, technology, and production capabilities. Very well. And Russia? Ah, here we have military technology and energy resources. What a great pair. And wait, sweetheart, because on top of all this, we have to multiply it by the human capacity of China. That is, by all the people who live in that country, and they could hold a weapon. The field experience of the Russian Federation. The fact that both countries have now become something like the meeting point of the entire global South. Should I continue? Actually, I'll summarize instead. The military potential of China and the Russian Federation is very likely equal to, or even much greater than that of NATO.